Well, good afternoon and welcome back to another live iThemes training webinar. My name is Nathan Ingram. I am the host here at iThemes Training, and it is time for a Plugin Roundup, November 2018. The year has almost come to an end. It is crazy how quickly, at least for me, 2018 has seemed to fly by. And we have another list of plugins that have been recently added or updated in the WordPress plugin directory. These are always my favorite webinars of the month. I always have a lot of fun putting these together and presenting them, and I hope you enjoy them as well. So, we're going to talk a little bit today about a few plugins. We've got some, but it's a shorter list than normal because I do want to focus more on Gutenberg. Because 2 weeks from today, WordPress 5.0 will be released. Even though there's been a lot of consternation surrounding that, and we'll talk about that a bit more as we get into the webinar today, we are on track for a November 19th release of WordPress 5.0 and the Gutenberg editor. So we're going to be looking at some plugins to deal with Gutenberg, as well as a few more Gutenberg add-on plugins that have been recently updated or added. So should be a fun webinar today, and if you are just joining us and go to webinar, again, the chat room is live at ithemes.com/chat. In that location, you will find the link to today's handout. I'm going to drop that in one more time just for everybody who hasn't gotten it yet. Okay, so let's get started with a pretty cool plugin called Health and Check Troubleshooting. Now, this is a plugin built by the WordPress community. Lots of contributors to this, and it is pretty similar, actually, in some ways, to this plugin that we talked about last month, the WP Safe Mode by Marcus Sykes. Now, this is the developer of the WordPress Events Manager, a really long-standing calendar plugin for WordPress, and he built this plugin to help you disable all your themes and plugins with a single click, but just for your user. And so your site doesn't go down for the rest of the world, and it'll let you troubleshoot your issues without actually having to disable plugins for real. So that's pretty cool. Now this plugin, and you can find this plugin, it's one of the featured ones. When you go to install plugins on a typical WordPress install and click Add New, it is probably going to be right there, right on the homepage. So it's one that has been around for a little while, and it was just updated, well, it's 3 months ago. I kind of missed this one. But I wanted to share this one with you because it's a good one. It does what that WordPress Safe Mode does, but some more stuff as well. So this is one I would highly recommend. It is a great plugin, and it's by reputable authors. So let us go activate Health and Troubleshooting. Boom. And it actually puts itself here under the dashboard. So let's have a quick look at what it does. All right, so we load it up and we get a nice little snapshot of what's going on in WordPress. What's our version? What's our, how many plugins do we have? Inactive plugins, how many themes? Some warnings here. One inactive theme. You might not want to have an inactive theme, it says. It does not have a default theme, which is actually incorrect. That is weird because 2016 is there. So it missed that one. Okay, but it does give us our correct PHP version and what database we're using, and it goes through all this other stuff. HTTP, we can talk to WordPress and other services securely. Background updates should all be working. Loopbacks are working. So it just gives us a nice snapshot. Now that in and of itself is not a big deal. A lot of plugins we've seen do things like this. Let's go a little further. We go to the Debug tab, and look, we get a ton of information about WordPress. So here's our version. Here's a summary of a lot of the settings. Can we talk to WordPress.org? Can anyone register? All those sorts of things. Look here, our install size. Our whole install, there's a full size there. Do we have any drop-in plugins going? What is our active theme and what are the features that it supports? Here's our other theme, and Gorilla Can't Type is saying, I thought we didn't need to have a default theme. You don't, unless you want to troubleshoot and roll back to a default theme. So there's a little issue here because it says we don't have a default theme, but yet it does pick up the 2016 theme. Where did it go? Yeah, right there. Weird. Anyhow, we've got, here's our active plugins. Here's our inactive plugins. How are we handling media? Oh, look, Image Magic is not turned on. That might be a function we want to turn on in our PHP. A little bit about the server and what's going on. Like we have fast process going on here for PHP to speed things up. All our PHP variables. This is helpful, right? Look at our memory limit shows right there, our timeout limit, and so forth. So lots of stuff going on here, all about our database, what's going on with our WordPress constants that can be defined in the WP config. Martin, it could be that it's looking for 2017. I'm not sure. And, you know, are our file system permissions good? So this is really good. Plus, you can copy and paste this whole thing if you need to send it to a plugin developer to troubleshoot. So that's pretty nifty. Now, when we actually get ready to troubleshoot, watch this. Enable troubleshooting mode. Now look at this. This gives us a nice little block here where this shows us that for me, I go to the front of the site and look, I'm in 2016. I am totally in troubleshooting mode where nothing for me is active. But I can enable certain plugins if I need to. I can enable and switch themes if I need to. So just for me in this troubleshooting mode. Now if I go into an incognito window and actually type the name of the site correctly, look at there. For the rest of the world, the site stays up. So that is super helpful as you're looking to troubleshoot WordPress. And the nice ability to enable plugins right here. These are the ones that were enabled before. And it shows those here. We can look at all plugins if we want. These are the ones that were enabled before. So yeah, this is super helpful. So let's disable troubleshooting mode, but there's even more. But wait, there's more. You can get into PHP information. This is basically, if you are slightly technical, you may have used a PHP info.php in your directory to see what's going on. This brings all that information right there to the front. And then there's a Tools tab. This is really cool. You can click here and use the checksums to make sure that your WordPress core files are intact. So let's click that, and yeah, so I deleted the WP config sample.php, so that doesn't exist, but all the other WordPress files check out. So this is really helpful if like you've been hacked and you need to see if there are any core WordPress files that have been compromised. This does that. It will also, this is nice, you can send yourself a test message to make sure that the WP mail function is working correctly. So that'll let you do that right from here. So this is all-in-one plugin for testing the health of WordPress. It is really, really nice. So that is health check and troubleshooting. Any questions or other comments about this? Somebody's saying, is this one you would leave on, Marcy is saying. You know, you could. I would more put it on when you're having a troubleshooting issue. Or this might be one that's really good if you're onboarding a site to support that you didn't design. Or it's on somebody else's hosting or something like that. This would be a good first glance just to kind of give everything a quick once-over to make sure everything is working. Probably not one that I would leave on unless you're having repetitive issues with a particular WordPress site, but really good for troubleshooting. Any other questions or comments on this one? Pretty good one there. WordPress health check and troubleshooting. All right, let's move on down to the next one. How many of you have ever designed a learning management system? By that I mean like a LearnDash or WP Courseware, you know, designing some sort of online course. Now, sometimes it's helpful in those courses when you have maybe a quiz feature, give people a little study guide to study with. And this Memorizer plugin is a really nice way to do something like that. Let me show you what I mean. Let's activate Memorizer. And watch what this is going to do. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to wrap some text in the shortcode Memorizer. So let's just go into a page And we'll just open up this one. And let's do this. Nathan Ingram is the, and we're going to say host at iThemes training. Okay, so what's going to happen when we look at this on the front end, anything that is between the memorizer shortcodes is going to be obfuscated by 3 dots. So let's look at how this looks. Look at that. And so this, like, you could put together a study page, and when you click on it, boom, it pops in the answer. Isn't that cool? So you could set up a whole page of these as, like, you know, the best, most useful place I could see. You know, if you're in the educational space or if you have an online course, this is a great way to make a study guide for somebody, and just, you know, like a fill in the blank kind of a thing. So you can do this manually, or this little box here in TinyMCE inserts the open and close memorizer shortcode. So pretty simple and straightforward, but I think it could be an excellent way to up your game for some sort of online course that you're designing for somebody. Any questions or comments on this one? Pretty simple, but a nice little addition. Okay. So moving on down the list to Icon Press Lite. Now this, how many of you use icon fonts on your particular website? You ever use icon fonts? A lot of folks use them with page builders, but if you've ever tried to use an icon font and you're not using a page builder that sort of has an icon module built into it, it can be a little challenging, let's just be honest. And here's a really simple way to bring icons into a WordPress site that is not using a page builder. Now, I probably wouldn't use this if I was using a page builder, but this is a really nice way to bring them in if you are not. So let's activate Icon Press, which is not present. Awesome. Let's close this and add the plugin. Okay. Now, okay. So what we're going to do is go down here to Icon Press Lite. Now, it's going to show us all the libraries that we have here. So we've got this web and mobile icon. These are very nice looking icons. We've got the regular Font Awesome library. We've got type icons, and there are more. There's the Font Awesome Solid. There's Vivid icons. There's NTypo. There's more. There's the Font Awesome brands. Line icons, so tons. Look at all these icons. Material icons. Meteocons, which I've never heard of before, but it looks like meteorological icons here. Ico Moon, which is a great set of fonts, and yet more. Look at all these. So that's it. Lots of different, you can see, lots of different types of icons. And here's what we can do. Let's just say we want to put together our own little collection of icons. Now, Barb is asking, do they actually download those to the site? Not really. No. Watch what's going to happen here. Let us, so everything isn't downloaded. Let's click a few of these things. Let's do a Facebook and a whatever that is, and maybe a Amazon icon, and a couple of these, and how about these, and a rainy day. Okay, so I'm going to save and access my collection. Now, have a look over here in the media library, because here's what they've done. Only the ones you select, it brings them in as SVGs. Okay? But it's only the icons you select. So this is the beautiful thing. One of the problems with these icon fonts is that if you're pulling icons from multiple icon fonts, like you're using a page builder, it's going to want to load the whole library of that font just if you're using one. So it can slow down your site a little bit. So these are in the WordPress media library. Now, there's a number of different ways that you can then make use of them. So let's go up here to My Collection. So here's my custom collection. Okay, and let's say I want to use this stormy cloud, right? I'm going to click, now we can just click here, Customize and Copy Code. And it's 80 pixels. Let's make it blue or purplish. Let's make it more blue, maybe about, you know, that nice medium blue. And look, we have a short code. So you can embed the icon as a short code. Let's go here and do that. Look at that. Boom, there it is. What does it look like? It is an SVG right there in your media library. So that's pretty cool. And you can also, look at this, you can just directly copy the SVG if you want to. You can use the inline SVG code where it's not even pulling the SVG out of the media library. It's actually, this has the full path definition. You can pull that straight in if you want to. Or if you're in a template, then you can use the PHP code as a template tag. So nice, and by the way, you can also link it if you want to do that. You can put that here. So it gives us a number of different ways to access this icon. And it makes it super simple. Cheesehead is asking, are the icons free? Yeah, everything that you see here is free. Everything here is free. Now, there is a pro version that is on Code Canyon. And yeah, there's a line break here, which always breaks in my PDF. It should work fine in the doc that you download. So it's $24. And the question was, is that unlimited sites? Okay, so this is a Code Canyon plugin, which means, you know, it's really just for one site, although, you know, you can put it on multiple sites if you want, but you have to update it manually at that point then, because usually the license they give you is only for one site. So that's kind of a pain. But the free version has a ton of stuff. And what I like about it, again, is that you don't have to download the whole Font Awesome library just to get one font. Barb is asking, do we need the SVG code in the functions.php to use those icons? No. Matter of fact, you don't need it at all because this plugin enables SVGs in the media library. So, pretty cool. It's a good option if you're not using a page builder, or if you want to, if you're just using a few icons out of an icon font, this just pulls them right in as an SVG. They'll be super fast. Any other questions or comments on this one? That is Icon Press. Andrew, could you add these icons to a menu? Yes, but it's ugly. Let me show you what I mean by that. Let's grab the SVG. This should work. And you can go to a menu, and this is kind of a hacky thing to do, but you can, in front of the label, paste that code. And when you save it, well, it's gigantic, but there you go. There it is. It's ugly, but it does work. So if we want to edit this, there are probably more elegant ways to do this. Let's make it 20 pixels. Yeah, there are more elegant ways to do it, but yes, it does work. But it's very hacky. Let's get rid of that before it drives me up the wall. Okay. All right, so there we go. Any other questions on this one? Icon Press. Okay, moving on down the list. Now, this is one that I had to think about for a little while because I like the idea of this plugin, and I think there's some creative ways you can use it. There are also some things I don't like about it, but you'll see what I mean. Okay, so let's go over and let's deactivate this one. And by the way, even if the plugin is deactivated, those icons still remain in the SVG, still remain in the media library. So you can use them there without the plugin. However, you need to make sure WordPress knows what SVGs are with some other code. Okay, so now we're looking at important links, which also isn't here. I had to reset my database halfway through the prep for this, and so there may be a couple plugins here that aren't in my list I'll have to download. Okay, important links is installed. It's going to give us a box right here. Okay, so the first thing I don't like is the pink and the blue, but I can get around that. It's just a weird, color scheme. It may not match with, your branding or whatever, and there's no way to change it. So just be aware of that. But what this is going to let you do is put some links here that iframe into this space. So for example, website URL, iThemes.com. And when we go here, look at that. It pulls in the page right there. Now think about how you could use this. So you could stack up a bunch of sites here. And yeah, just like Girl Who Can't Type, Barbara, it's exactly. So you could put some how-tos in there. You could put a payment portal on your own website there. It's just iframing in the content. Now, what you need to be aware of, though, is that some websites do not allow iframes. And you've probably seen some of the frame buster features in different plugins. Like, for example, if we wanted to put Google in here, I'm having trouble typing today for some reason. If we put Google in, it does not work. No worky. Another thing I thought was like Amazon S3. aws.amazon.com. It's for like people who have a podcast and they're going to upload their MP3s or whatever. No worky. So sites like this do not allow themselves to be iframed in. So just be aware of that. And so you can't do that. But a lot of sites do allow it, and so you can bring them right in. And it works just like it's the whole site. It's right there. It's just an iframe. So it's an interesting concept. That, there's things I like about it, and there's things I don't like about it. I could do without the background color. By the way, it is totally responsive. It's kind of really bad on a phone, so it's not going to work real well on a teeny tiny screen, but otherwise. So what do you think? Important links. What could you put in there? Might be an interesting little addition for your client sites. Anyhow, any other questions or comments on this one? Important Links by Alex Dimchak. Let's move on down the list to this month's Girl Who Can't Type. What about SEO? I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. This is only showing on the back end, so it shouldn't affect any SEO. Yeah, if the site's in here, it's not going to affect your SEO at all because all this is behind the WP admin wall. So none of these pages get crawled. Okay. This month's simple but useful plugin number 1 called Internal Page Title. Now, this This solves what I call the, what the heck did I call that page again, problem. How many of you have named a page, maybe it's the contact page or something like that, something other than contact because, you know, it converts better or it's better for SEO, or you're trying to fit a keyword in there or whatever, and then you can't remember as easily where that page is on the back end. So this is it's a neat little plugin. It's a clever idea to deal with that issue, and it is also not in my list, so I'll have to install that one real quick. I think right here was where I rolled back the database when I was preparing and lost all my installs. So internal page title, and watch what it does. It only, by the way, only works with pages, but it gives you another little box right here. And we'll say, this is my long, pretty public title for this page. And our internal title is just going to be test. So when we publish this, we view the page, and on the public side, it's my long, pretty title. But on the back side, it shows up as test. So it's a clever little way to get around this problem that I've actually experienced before with sites, and I've ended up having to just navigate to those pages on the front end and then edit them using the WordPress admin bar, which is fine, but this might be a way to make things a lot simpler on the back end. So again, simple but useful. It's, you know, could solve a problem that you may or may not have. If you don't have it, then don't worry about it. I just thought it was a clever little solution, and a lot of times these simple plugins are the best ones to solve just a really simple problem. Pretty straightforward. Any questions or comments on this one? Internal page title. Yeah. All right, so let's look at the next one, which is menu item duplicator. Menu item duplicator. I need to download that one as well. Now, how many of you have ever tried to rebuild a menu? Like you've got one and you need to make another menu that's similar to it on another area of the site. And there are plugins like that called Duplicate Menu that will replicate the whole menu into another menu. Like, you know, like maybe you have a mobile version and you have a regular version, and like the mobile version has a home link and maybe some other links in it that's different than the main site menu. And, you know, there are, you know, Duplicate Menu, for example, will copy the whole menu. But what about the issue, and I've had this several times, where you want to put the same pieces of the menu again in other places of the same menu? Well, you just have to do that manually usually. But this one, this menu item duplicator, is going to solve that problem. So let's say we've got a big, you know, like a whole substructure here. And, you know, we want to, let's say, we want to copy this section, and maybe it needs to go under another section. Well, what I can do without, you know, you can fight through all of this and just click duplicate. And right here in the same menu, it duplicated the page and all of its subpages. So you could drag this now wherever you wanted it to go. See how that works? So even if it's just one page, that single click is a whole lot faster than trying to find it over here. So you can drag stuff around, you know, whatever. But this will duplicate a single menu item or the whole structure. So if I duplicate page 3, it duplicates the whole structure, the menu link and the submenu links. So it's a clever little plugin. It's not one that you would leave on a site, but as you're building a site, could be really helpful. So Gorilla Can't Type, why would you do this? Well, again, if you have a large site with a complicated menu that you may want the same set of pages to appear under multiple headings on that menu, under multiple menu items. I've had that a number of times. So rather than rebuilding it manually, you can just duplicate it right here with a single link. Yeah, like the footer menu, for example, or whatever. So again, it's a niche application, but the first time you have to do that manually, you're going to be going, what was the name of that stupid plugin that Nathan told me about? Because this is going to save a lot of time in that particular scenario. This is the beautiful thing about WordPress, right? Any problem that you come up against, chances are somebody else has already had it and has figured out a solution for it. You got to love the WordPress community. So anyway, that's menu item duplicator, simple but useful, number 2. All right. So our last plugin in the official list before we get to Gutenberg is this month's good idea or bad idea plugin called Print My Blog. I read this and I thought, okay, why would you want to print your blog? I mean, really, that'd be something like my mom would do maybe. Like, I'm going to print my blog and read it. Well, you go online to read a blog. I don't know. So, I was scratching my head about it, and then I used it once and thought, this is actually kind of cool. So let's go in here and activate Print My Blog. And, okay, so here's the thing. It only works on the back end of the site. This is not something that lets the public print your blog, which is unfortunate. But if you know anything about PDFs and server resources, crunching out a PDF is a pretty server-intensive task, and so you may not want this on the front of your website. But let's look at our options here. So how do we want this thing to lay out? Each post begins a new page? Yes. How many columns do I want the post to be printed in? Let's stick with 2. Font size, tiny, small, medium, large. Let's make it normal. And how big of an image? Let's make it large. All right. Prepare to print page. We are preparing your blog's content for printing. Ready to print. Let's print it. Okay, so what it wants to do now is actually print. And I'm going to save this as a PDF so you can see it. And where did it go? There it is. Okay, so here's the PDF. And so this is the cover page, and here are the articles. So notice it's not rendering any short codes, but it does give us a title and a date and a picture and all of the content. Interesting, right? Is it selectable text? Yeah, it should be in this PDF. Do you mean like this? Yeah, it's just text in a PDF that you can copy and paste. Sure, this is just straight text. And you could pull these images out, copy the image, move it somewhere else, all that. So the question is, does it work with custom post types? No. Just posts. Just posts. But it wouldn't take much to enable custom post type support. That'd be something you'd have to ask the author about. Can you turn off images? Great question. None. Look at there. Hide the images. So that's Print My Blog. What do you think? Good idea or bad idea? Jan's saying a client has 2,177 posts. That's going to be a big PDF. And there's no way to select what gets printed. You're going to print the whole thing. And your server is probably going to cry out for mercy as it's trying to print out a 2,177 page plus PDF. Stacy's saying I have a client who doesn't have a computer, so this might be good for proofreading. Very possible. So mostly good ideas. Yeah, interesting. All right. The other Stacy is saying, I actually had to do something like this once for basically that reason for a lawyer. Interesting. And a blind client. Well, okay, so a blind client. How would you print this for a blind client? You would print it in Braille. Okay. Interesting. Okay, so now we move on to the more notorious section of today's webinar, which is getting ready for Gutenberg. Because, ready or not, Gutenberg is coming 2 weeks from today. You will wake up on Monday morning, November the 19th, and WordPress 5.0 will either have dropped already or will drop later that day. Now, we can argue about the fact of whether or not it's a good idea to drop a major release of WordPress with an editor that radically changes the way WordPress is used on the week of Thanksgiving, on the week of Black Friday. We can argue that point. But no matter what, that's when it's coming. There is no indication whatsoever that the launch is going to be delayed. So, there you go. Stacy is saying it's like Y2K, and you know what? That is a great comparison. It is like Y2K. So whether you like it or whether you hate it, Gutenberg cannot be ignored. Now, there's been a lot of consternation in the WordPress community, particularly recently about the accessibility issues. If you've been following that WP drama, perhaps the accessibility lead for the Gutenberg team stepped down. Or actually, it was accessibility lead for the WordPress accessibility team that was tasked with making Gutenberg accessible stepped down. There's been a lot of articles and other things. This link, by the way, goes to nowhere. It's not clickable in my PDF, but it will be in the doc that you downloaded. So let me get that link up, actually. It's a WP Tavern article that's an interview with Joe Dawson, who has been on with us and done some training webinars. He's awesome. He is the developer of the WP Accessibility plugin. And if you've not yet read this interview, this is the one that's linked in the PDF here. I would highly suggest that you do that. Joe gives a very, very balanced look at WordPress accessibility. So have a look at that and make sure that you are aware of what's going on there. Anyhow, so no matter what, it's coming. It's going to be ready. It is not fully accessible. It's going to be published anyway. It is coming November the 19th. Now, the funny thing is, Gutenberg, the Drupal world loves Gutenberg. They think it's the best thing ever. So it's done much better in the Drupal world than it has in the WordPress world for which it was created. There are also some, I'm not sure if you've seen this or not, how many of you are aware of Classic Press? Classic Press is a fork of WordPress that is powerful, versatile, and predictable. This is not a dig at anybody in particular. But yeah, Classic Press is a fork of WordPress, which means it should use all the regular WordPress plugins, at least for now. And it is created to be another option that is more community controlled than WordPress seems to be right now. So if you're not familiar with Classic Press, that's classicpress.net. Maybe have a look at that. I'm not even close to considering Classic Press seriously yet. But no matter what, it's critical that you are prepared. So particularly if you are a person who manages sites for clients, you are going to want to have a strategy in 2 weeks when Gutenberg is released, when WordPress 5.0 drops. So there are a few plugins that you need to be aware of that will help you prepare for the change. Now, if you're like me, you are planning to completely disable Gutenberg while the dust settles. I will probably delay the upgrade to WordPress 5.0 for a few weeks at least, even 5.0 period, for a few weeks, just because I don't want to have to deal with individual problems on 120 websites. So I'm not even going to update at all. However, for the last probably 3 months now, I've had Classic Editor installed on all the sites that I am responsible for. And Classic Editor here is the first option. Now let me jump back in here and let us enable Gutenberg. And by the way, Gutenberg, if you are not aware, is currently a plugin that you can download here in the WordPress plugin directory. Click Add New, and it's going to be right here at the top. You can download it and activate it. And for those of you who aren't aware, the way new features get added into WordPress is that they start as a plugin. WordPress is just a big pile of PHP functions that can be extended by other PHP functions called plugins. So whenever a big addition is going to be added to WordPress, it starts as a plugin, and then it's refined there. And then at some point, the plugin creator makes a formal merge request to the WordPress core team. The core team then evaluates the plugin and decides whether it's going to merge those plugin functions into core WordPress. And that's where Gutenberg is today. It's still a plugin, and there has to be a merge request that's been made. It's been made, and it will be merged into WordPress 5.0. So that's how this works. So we'll just activate Gutenberg. And here we go. Gutenberg is now active, and I've got a Gutenberg test page here, and it's radically different than the old tiny MCE editor. Now, Classic Editor, when it is active, now by the way, let me show this first. When you activate Gutenberg, just Gutenberg, they've made a couple of changes that were first introduced in Classic Editor. The first thing you'll notice is this little drop down beside the Add New, and that occurs on every post type of your website. So they all have this little drop down, whether it's a custom post type or WooCommerce products or whatever, and you can make a new post using either Gutenberg or the Classic Editor. Now, aside, this is not in common understanding, Gutenberg does not replace TinyMCE completely. It's still in the background. And you can, even with Gutenberg active, you can click Classic Editor and it's still there. You can edit with it. And when you go into posts, you can edit posts using, if you click Edit, it's going to be using Gutenberg. If you click Classic Editor, it'll open up your existing post in the Classic Editor. So, Gutenberg realizes it's got to live alongside TinyMCE for a little more time. A great question in the chat from Marcy. What happens to the Gutenberg plugin when 5.0 drops? Well, I'm not exactly sure, but likely what's going to happen is in the process of updating WordPress, they're probably going to disable the Gutenberg plugin. I don't know if it's going to delete it. I think deleting a plugin is heavy-handed, so they will probably just disable it, but I'm not sure. And somebody may have an answer for that. I'm just not aware of what it is. But it will certainly disable the plugin at least. So it's not going to break anything if you already have Gutenberg installed. So Classic Editor, when we install and activate Classic Editor, and yes, you can work, in the question in the chat, you can work with both the Classic Editor and Gutenberg on a site. They can live side by side. The only problem comes, let's go to this page. So Gutenberg, actually, let me just drop some Gutenberg stuff in on this page. Let's put a heading in and some text. Update. Okay, so now we have some stuff in Gutenberg. And if we go back into this and we edit this test page with Classic Editor, you get this warning. Okay, this post was previously edited. You can continue, but you may lose data and formatting. You can go right into Classic Editor, and it looks and edits just the same. But you got to remember there's all this Gutenberg markup that's in there. Now, all this gets stripped out on the front end when the page renders, but you just have to be aware that that's there. So if I go here and I start typing some other stuff, and we update this, and then go back to Gutenberg, See, we get a problem here. The edit in Gutenberg. See, it dropped it all in this box. Now this, so it's not a huge deal, but you can go back and forth, but you probably want to pick one or another per post. I mean, that kind of goes without saying. Anyhow, when we go to Classic Editor and we install Classic Editor, by default, Gutenberg is totally disabled. So now when we go to our post menu, hang on a minute. Did I activate Classic Editor? Just a minute. Oh, I made this change earlier. Sorry. Forget I just did that. Okay, now, this is what you'll get. So the Gutenberg dropdown is gone. Gutenberg is completely gone. You edit your post just like you normally would. Now, Classic Editor does give you the ability, as you just saw, under Settings and Writing, to do this. Use the block editor by default and include optional links back to the Classic Editor. This is a redundant setting. This is where they started off, but Gutenberg has replicated that functionality in itself. So this is really, I mean, if you're going to do this, you might as well not even have Classic Editor installed. The other thing Classic Editor does is that it suppresses the Try Gutenberg welcome nag that was released with WordPress 4.9.8. So it suppresses that automatically. Now, currently, this is my choice for dealing with Gutenberg. It's got 500,000 plus installs. It is solid code. This is the one I'm currently using on my sites. Now, that could change if Disable Gutenberg becomes a little more solid. So that was Classic Editor. This is the only settings that it gives you. That's how it works. Let me deactivate that one, and let's talk a little bit about Disable Gutenberg. Now, Disable Gutenberg is has a lot more function to it than the Classic Editor. You get a whole settings menu that is full of stuff. Now, by default, these two options are checked. So all you have to do is install it and activate it, and Gutenberg goes away. No further settings are required. It's going to disable Gutenberg, and it's going to disable the Try Gutenberg nag by default. Now, this is important. The Classic Editor is the same way. You install it, you activate it, and it's disabled by default. If you are using a multi-site management tool to manage a lot of sites like iThemes Sync, then with a tool like that, you can simply install and activate this plugin across all your sites, and Gutenberg is disabled. That's all you have to do to get ready for 5.0. So that's really, really helpful. So Disable Gutenberg gives you a lot of other options. Now, if you uncheck completely disable, look, a whole bunch of stuff opens up. We can disable Gutenberg for certain roles. So I want to select the user roles that it should be disabled. So if I want to leave Gutenberg on for administrators, I can do that, or whatever roles that I want. So you can turn it on and off by role. You can also turn it on and off by post type. Now that's really important, and just so we can see, I'm going to go ahead and activate WooCommerce and Pods, so we get a couple of other custom post types in here. So when we get down here, every normally registered custom post type for WordPress is going to show up here. So we can turn it on and off per custom post type. Now you can also specify theme template files. So if you're creating your own theme templates, you can put theme templates for which Gutenberg is disabled there. You can also disable it on various post IDs, which is super helpful. So I don't want to be able to use Gutenberg on certain IDs. You can put those there. So you get a lot of great options here. You can even hide the Gutenberg menu item. So notice there's a Gutenberg item. The Classic Editor does not hide this, but with this option selected, when you save it, it breaks your site, which is awesome. Let's try this again. Okay, not sure what happened there, but now the Gutenberg item has gone away. So the only reason this plugin is not my plugin of choice is it wasn't this robust early on. It had a few little problems. And even a couple of weeks ago, they had a bug that removed the edit page button or edit post button from the front end of WordPress. Like, this just went away. And it was a bug in this Disable Gutenberg. I'm not as confident in the code of this plugin as I am of the classic editor. And this classic editor has been hammered on a lot more than Disable Gutenberg. Disable Gutenberg has 9,000 installs, which is nowhere close to 500,000. So the plugin that I'm going to trust is the one, it's on all my sites. I just want something I'm a little more confident in. Not that there's necessarily anything wrong with this one right now. It appears to be perfectly, fully functional. And if it continues to have no further problems, I may use it instead of Classic Editor going forward. Haven't made up my mind on that yet, though. One other one that I want you to be aware of, this is one that I'd recommended earlier in previous webinars, and that is Gutenberg Ramp. Let me close some of these windows. We got a million tabs open right now. Gutenberg Ramp, let us deactivate. Oh, you know what? That's probably what that error was. I'd left Classic Editor active at the same time as Disable Gutenberg. Let's deactivate these guys. And activate Gutenberg Ramp. The nice thing about Gutenberg Ramp, it is by Automatic, which is, of course, the company behind WordPress. It is created by the WordPress VIP team, which is the group that supports large enterprise websites that use WordPress. And this is their solution to on-ramping clients to Gutenberg. With it active, it disables Gutenberg by default. And here in Settings and Writing, it gives you the ability to disable or to enable Gutenberg only on certain post types. So by default, Gutenberg is disabled, and then when you enable it, it will appear. So let's just look. If here for posts, Gutenberg Ramp is active, no Gutenberg stuff. Let's go back here, turn it on just for posts, and we ought to see Gutenberg-y stuff here in posts. So right there. Edit it, and we are in Gutenberg. So that's how it's going to work. So that's another option, although this functionality is present in and better in the Disable Gutenberg plugin because it also lets you do user roles and so forth. It does not disable the Try Gutenberg nag. So there you go. Those are the three options. Currently, Classic Editor, my plugin of choice to deal with Gutenberg. Again, that could change if Disable Gutenberg proves to be reliable for a little while. All right. Any questions or comments on this? We'll run just a little bit long today because I do want to show you a couple of these Gutenberg plugins that have been released because there's some pretty cool stuff. And again, there's a lot of consternation, like I said, about Gutenberg and a lot of fear. Gutenberg, in my opinion, Gutenberg is going to be great for WordPress. We just have to get around the bend. The change is tough to deal with, but ultimately, this is a good move for WordPress. There's a lot of things that I have not liked in the process, but, ultimately, at the end of the day, there's a whole new code base going into WordPress that is going to spark what I think is going to be a Cambrian explosion of development in WordPress. It's going to be, there's just so many things that are going to be possible once the Gutenberg core gets into WordPress. So hang in there. It's going to be okay. Okay, so let's look at a couple of these things. And we've done a few of these. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on any of these, but I do want you to see some of the stuff that's being developed. And again, a lot of the block, and there's tons of blocks out there for Gutenberg now, by the way. If you just do a search for Gutenberg in the WordPress plugin directory, there's tons of third-party blocks. Some of them are not great. Some of them are pretty stinking cool. And so I want to show you a few of those. So OtterBlocks is pretty decent. Let me make sure that everything is disabled here. Gutenberg Ramp is off. I just don't want to have any conflicts. Okay, and let's activate Otter blocks, which sounds a lot like a case for your smartphone. Okay, and let's go into our Gutenberg test page here. And I'm going to delete everything here real quick. That's the other thing I really get frustrated with Gutenberg is finding the stuff to delete stuff with. It feels like it moves around on you. Okay. So let's add a block, and we're going to search for Otter. And here's all the options that Otter blocks brings in. So there's pricing tables, there's pie charts, there's Google Maps and all that. Let's just do a quick pricing table. Look how easy this is to edit. You just click in there. Remember the days of short codes where you had to have like a short code for this, and each short code had, they were stacked. So there's like a short code, and within that short code, there's a short code for the price. And after that, there was a short code for, is it month or year or whatever. Then there's a short code for each feature. It got to be a flippin' nightmare. This is what's cool about Gutenberg, is that you just click in here and you can edit the text. Add a feature, do whatever you want. You just click around in here and it does its thing. And everything is visual. It's just really cool. That's the way a lot of these Gutenberg blocks are going to be. Otter. There's another one here I wanted you to see, which is... Which one was it? Oh yeah, like the accordion. Look at this. You just click on it. And there's my title, and there's what goes in underneath it. Preview it. Boom. It's just so easy to use. So these are the kinds of things that make me hopeful about all these changes with Gutenberg. Let me show you a different one. The form builder. Now, I don't like this form builder per se. Everything is responsive, yes. I don't particularly like this form builder, but I want to show you the kind of approach that form builders could take when Gutenberg happens. Let me just activate, where is it? Form. What's it called? WordPress Form Builder. And again, not necessarily this specific one, and I've not seen Gutenberg blocks from Gravity Forms or any of those guys yet. Let me remove these. Let's add a form. And look, this is what's so cool. Each of the elements in this form are blocks. And so I click on them and I get field settings over here. What kind of field is it going to be? If I want to add another block, I just click the block. What kind of block is it? It's an input field. It's going to be radio buttons. And I can click in here. And, here's all my labels over here. Blah, blah, blah. Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, you see how this could work? And then you can move it around. Just like that. So this is just, what could be. I don't particularly care for this form builder, but it's going to give you a lot of, it just gives you a peek into what could be the future of the visual editor. Barb. Okay. Let's come back to Barbara's question at the end because I think that's a good question to answer. This one is pretty stinking cool. Block Gallery from Rich Tabor. So let's activate Block Gallery. This brings a photo gallery to the Gutenbergs. Now watch this. Let's just make a basic stacked gallery. So it's dropped in the block. Now let's go into the media library and pull some pictures. Those are the pictures for our gallery. Okay, insert. There they are. Okay, that's kind of cool. It's a stacked gallery. Now, this is what I love about Gutenberg and the way it's using React JavaScript to generate all this. So you get live previews of things. So grab this, look. The gutter between the images, you can just look at it. Look at that. And it's just, what you see is what you get. Rounded corners on the pictures? Sure, look at that. Are we going to link them to anything? Is there going to be a box shadow behind anything? It's kind of hard to see, but it's there. Are we going to link to any? What are we going to link to? Is there a background behind the thing? It's just really nice to use. What is the padding like in the background? Look at that. So I love the preview ability. But this is what's so cool about this plugin, this block. So you've got all these images in here, right? You've got some other ways to deal with it. So look, let's make it instead a masonry. Oh, there we go. Didn't have to recreate it. We're just going to change the way it's viewed. Look at that. Or, hey, let's make it a carousel. Look at that. And you can preview it right here on the page. Isn't that awesome? Make them extra large in their full width. It's just so nice to use. So Barbara's asking, it's not using the customizer. Is that going away anytime soon? Okay, so there's a... ultimately, Gutenberg is going to... The whole Gutenberg approach is going to deal with a whole WordPress site. For now, the customizer and Gutenberg live alongside each other. Think of it this way. Customizer is for global, site-wide changes for the most part. Gutenberg is per page or post. Does that help? So they cross paths a little bit, but Customizer is more full site, whereas Gutenberg is the page of the post. Here's another one, Cloud Blocks. This is like kind of like I mean, if this takes off, it's going to be sort of like an app store for blocks. And let me activate this so you can see it. Cloud Blocks. That is going to put for us. Let's update. And now we have this blocks option here. And look, you get, okay, so here's all these blocks, right? And you can install them. Oh, look, this is the one we just put in, the block gallery from Rich Tabor. That plugin is available right here. But oh, look, here's one for a hero section. Let's install that block. Boom, done. Let's refresh our page. And let us put in a hero area. Boom, look at that. So there's a hero area, and we can just type in here and do stuff. Look, there's a button. Here's where it goes. Right here, do we want the image on the left or on the right? How big is it going to be? What's the background color going to be like? Let's make it an image. Look at that. We could edit that image and make it one of our own. Isn't that nice? So this sort of layout, I love the way this works. We're not quite there yet on all the functionality, but there's a lot of promise here, I think. Here's one more and then we'll quit, and that's devices. I really like this plugin, this devices block. I'm using Freemius, so you have to skip that stuff. All right, now let's update this and then refresh our page so we get the new block. So let's scroll down, add a block, and we want devices. Now, all it has currently, as far as a frame, is an iPhone 10 and a MacBook. But let's do iPhone 10, and then we get to put an image in the background. So let's do the, which one here? Let's do our pretty tree. Boom, look at that. Isn't that nice? You can show the browser. Look at that. And if you want to instead show it as in a MacBook, well, there you go. And probably other devices will come along that you can use as well. But just that quick, we got this nice gallery. Now, this theme does not support full width, which is why it's not going full width. But look at there. That's pretty cool. So those are just some of the new Gutenberg blocks. There's a ton of them out there. This block here is called devices, right there. We'll finish up with Barbara's question a minute ago, but any other questions specifically about these blocks or Gutenberg to come? Again, 2 weeks from today is Y2K. No, not really. It is Gutenberg drop day. Block party. Any more questions or comments on this, and we'll wrap up with Barbara's comment. Okay, so Barbara mentioned in the chat room a minute ago, why are people like us, in other words, web developers, needed if it's so easy to use? And it's a great question. And at the core, it's really the same question people have been asking for a few years now of, why are we needed if Wix and Weebly and Squarespace and all that? And the answer is this. If your business is simply, you turning a wrench and clicking buttons just to build a website, then yeah, you're a commodity, and that's a problem. But what will never be replaced, and I don't care what the technology is that's used to build websites, what will never be replaced is the place of a web professional that knows how to communicate a message using the medium of the web. Now, I've been building websites since 1995, and I've been through lots of different evolutions of technology, from the text editor early on all the way through, my front page stage, through my Macromedia stage, and then into WordPress. I've got lots of platforms for developing websites. What has always stayed the same, and what is the value that I bring to my clients, is my ability to understand what it is they're trying to do and make it happen on the web. Now, it doesn't matter Gutenberg or Squarespace or Wix or whatever. A person who doesn't understand the idiosyncrasies of the web, they're always going to have problems. Always going to have problems. And Jesse, yeah, same thing with desktop publishing. I was a big print designer before I even moved into the web. And it's all about, I'm trying to communicate information. But here's a good analogy that I use. I could go into Home Depot or pick your hardware store, and I could buy tile to floor my bathroom. But I'm never going to do it as well as a professional tile guy or tile girl. Right? Never going to do that. Right now, as I speak, there's a guy in my bathroom upstairs pulling out an old tub that had a crack in it and putting in a new one. Could I have done that? Probably. But what would it have looked like when I was finished? It would have been the bathroom equivalent of a self-built website. It would have been all jacked up, right? Lots of problems. I mean, it would functionally probably have worked, probably, but it would not be beautiful. It would not be, there would be some problems. So that's my answer to that question. And the trick is finding the client who appreciates your experience and expertise. And that's assuming that you have experience and expertise. If you don't, you need to learn your tools and get really good at building websites. You need to learn, how to build, and not only how to mechanically build a website, but also how to build a site that works and converts for people. That's why we have such the broad range of training that we have here on iThemes Training. It's not just about the code or the plugins or WordPress. It's about all of it. It's about content. It's about SEO. It's about getting the legal parts of your business straight. It's about all of these things. That's why we have such that this broad brush of training that we do. So anyway, that was a long-winded answer to probably a short question. Does that make sense? Anyhow, okay, off my soapbox now. So, thus ends the November 2018 Plugin Roundup. With Gutenberg only 2 weeks away, we ask the question that we always end with, which is, what was your favorite plugin of the Roundup? One vote only, and we do go back and check these responses because they weigh in on the best of wrap-up that will happen in December. Your favorite plugin of the day, Icon Press, Health Check. Your vote right there in the chat room, iThemes.com/chat. Several votes for Health Check. Another vote for Icon. Cloud Blocks. Lots of votes for Health Check. Important Links. Another for Health Check. Anybody else? Your vote matters. All right. Well, thanks again for hanging out with me for the last hour or so. It's been a lot of fun as always. I love these plugin roundups. They're my favorite webinar of the month. Do want to let you know about this webinar that's coming up on Thursday, The Case of the Disappearing Email. This was a user-requested webinar that basically boils down to, what do you do when your contact form or your orders aren't being delivered to your inbox or to your client's inbox? We're going to talk all about transactional email and why those issues happen and what you can do about it to ensure, or at least come as close as you possibly can to ensuring that all of those WordPress generated emails actually reach their intended recipients. So that's the Case of the Disappearing Email coming up on Thursday at 1 o'clock. If you are in the Florida area, I'll be in WordCamp Orlando this weekend. Looking forward to that one. It's going to be a great weekend down there. So if you are going to be there, make sure you find me and say hi. I'm speaking on Saturday afternoon. So that's it. Thanks for hanging out with me for the last hour. And thanks for being with us here again on iThemes Training, where we go further together.